Where is this? Call to order. Oh, 4.1. Okay. Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lethbridge City Council meeting for Monday, May the 4th. We'll begin with the Acknowledgement Statement. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people, past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The City of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We'll now move on to bouquets. Councillor Kaufman?
Nothing, Mayor Spearman.
Okay. I believe Councillor Parker is away. Okay. Councillor Hagan?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I just wanted to make a note. I'd send off an email to the rest of my colleagues about the passing of Phil North here last week, and I just wanted to, as being someone within our community that has done so much, I just want to read part of about Phil here. It says, Phil loved the law, his work, and serving the clients with his colleagues and friends at North & Company for over 47 years. He served the legal profession extensively as a local, provincial, and national level, including roles of the chairman of the Alberta Law Foundation, chair of the Legal Education Society of Alberta, president of the Lethbridge Bar Association, and many other distinguished service awards that he's received for the Law Society in Alberta, Canada Bar Association, Alberta branch, and we also know that he did many things throughout our community to help those in need, served on multiple different boards, and so I just wanted to send my condolences out to the family and of Phil at this time.
Yep. I think all of City Council recognizes that Mr. Phil North was a great contributor to our community and our community organizations, and certainly he will be missed. Yep. Councillor Morrow? Councillor Crowson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make note of the Community Foundation. They just recently released their COVID-19 grants. So this was several $100,000 that went out to local organizations. Thank you to everyone who donated, because right now your money can be doubled. And thank you to all the organizations who applied for grants, some who got them, some who didn't, because it's through those community organizations and those charities that so much work is being done in our community right now. Thank you all.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I just want to wish everyone happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Also a big shout out to, I believe there's 5,000 members online now in the Lethbridge COVID-19 support circle. These are all community folks going out and helping neighbors, helping folks in our community stay safe, stay well supplied during this time. And they're doing an amazing job. So I just want a big shout out to our community for joining together. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell?
Thank you. I just wanted a big shout out to the Lethbridge Public Library for story time as they maintain an online presence and keeping kids entertained. I had the great pleasure of telling a couple of stories or reading a book and singing a couple of songs that I forgot how to sing, but that was a lot of great fun, and that's online at the Lethbridge Public Library Facebook page. And I understand, well, Belinda Crowson did one last week, I think, and then I believe Jeff Carlson is going to be doing one. So just a big shout out to everyone at the Lethbridge Public Library for keeping things vibrant.
Yep. I've also done my turn. Yeah. I've already done it last week. Yeah.
And congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Did you remember the song?
Yep. I'm a little teapot.
Yes.
Councillor Miyashiro.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Further to what Councillor Carlson said, the people that run that Facebook page are also part of Lethbridge Helping Group's Slack group, that is workspace, that is communicating about the needs of our community and working behind the scenes collaboratively to try to get services in place for a wide range and variety of cross-sectoral needs.
Thank you. I too would like to thank the organizations in the city. I've mentioned last week Volunteer Lethbridge, the Mindful Munchies program, the people at the Helen Schuler Center, the people at Building Brains through the Lethbridge Play Charter, certainly Lethbridge Public Library, which has been mentioned, Lethbridge Recreation and Culture for creating activities for people, the neighborhood window walk through Alberta Allied Arts Council, and the Isolation Art Tour, again through Allied Arts Council. People who are enriching our community and providing activities for those who are struggling and certainly keeping people positive. So we want people to stay well, and you can get more information about all of these at hashtag StayWellYQL. Thanks to everyone who's helping and all of those who are observing the Alberta Health Guidelines in order to keep our community safe. Thank you. We'll now do a roll call of councillors before we go further.
Okay, so Councillor Campbell.
Here.
Councillor Carlson.
Present.
Councillor Crowson.
Here.
Councillor Higgin. Councillor Morrow. He stepped out? Okay. Councillor Miyashiro.
Here.
Councillor Parker. Not here today. Deputy Mayor Kaufman.
Here.
Mayor Spearman.
Here.
Councillor Morrow will probably be back shortly. Yep. And Director of Community Service, Tony Vanden Heuvel, you're on the line?
Present.
Thank you.
Good. So now we'll move on with the meeting, and we'll start with the consent agenda. I have a resolution from Deputy Mayor Kaufman. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of City Council held Monday, April the 20th be approved, and that the Mayor and the City Clerk be authorized to sign the same. And further be it resolved that the minutes of the special meeting of City Council held Tuesday, April 21st, 2020 be approved, and that the Mayor and the City Clerk be authorized to sign the same. And further, that the minutes of the special meeting of City Council held Friday, April 24th, 2020 be approved, and that the Mayor and the City Clerk be authorized to sign the same. And further be it resolved that City Council received the following as information: the City Council referral list and 2019 Major Community Event Hosting Grant Annual Report. Deputy Mayor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Unless there are any questions, the only thing I'd just point out to the members of council and the community is the annual report from our Major Community Event Hosting Grant. We had a very good 2019, 4 events over 19 days with an attendance of 94,207 and an expenditure of $922,000 back into our community. So it was a good year. If there are any questions, please attend to those. Otherwise, call the question.
Okay, there is a question from Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Through you to perhaps City Treasurer. Just in the item that Councillor Kaufman was Deputy Mayor Kaufman was just speaking to, the item 2.4. Do we have a running total on the budget of what's remaining in that? And could that from now on be a part of the annual report of a snapshot of what the budget is like? I don't need that information now, but I'd like to know it at some point.
Councillor Carlson, I believe that was included in the annual, the unaudited report, but I do have the information in front of me. The total available for the Major Community Event Hosting Grant is $355,845.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There are no further questions. Our Deputy Mayor Kaufman has called the question. All in favor? Are there any opposed? That is unanimous. I now have a resolution from Councillor Carlson. Adoption of the agenda. That the agenda of the regular City Council meeting of May the 4th be adopted, including all communications as submitted by the City Clerk. City Clerk, are there any additions?
Yes, Your Worship, there are two additions for the in-camera agenda. There's personnel matter number 1, and that's 9.6, and personnel matter number 2, and that'll be 9.7, both verbal reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now the resolution will read that the agenda of the regular City Council meeting of May the 4th, 2020 be adopted as amended, including all communications as submitted by the City Clerk. Are there any questions? I see none. Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Just the three to the City Clerk. Item 4.3 was originally assigned to Councillor Parker, who's away. Do we have someone who's willing to take that resolution?
Thank you for the question. That motion was already put by Councillor Parker, so it still stands because it was postponed. I realize he's not here. If someone else would like to
Someone
take
else
it
will
over,
have to move
that's
it at the
fine.
time, but the reason why it says Councillor Parker is because he was the original mover of a postponed motion.
Excellent. Thank you. So I will call for the vote.
Okay. Question has been called. All in favor? Any opposed? There are none. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to 4.1. And we'll invite, oh, it's a submission. Okay, we have a submission from Councillor Crowson, the 2020 to 2023 Lethbridge Land Work Plan and Project Expenditures. Whereas administration presented the Lethbridge Land Annual Report at the April 27, 2020 Community Issues Committee meeting, and whereas the Lethbridge Land Annual Report 2019 was received for information by the Community Issues Committee, therefore be it resolved that City Council approve the funding for the 2020 to 2023 Lethbridge Land Work Plan and Project Expenditures from subdivision surplus. And further be it resolved that to ensure Lethbridge Land is financially transparent and responsible, a project variance between the approved work plan expenditures and the actual net expenditures be presented to Lethbridge City Council. Councillor Crowson?
Thank you, Your Worship. So as the resolution says, we did just receive or did hear the presentation last week from Michael Kelly, the Manager of Real Estate and Land Development. In there was the project expenditure variance and the work plan. So what we're looking at today is to approve that, if my colleagues are in agreement, and we will also be requesting a project variance, because as we know, COVID-19 will change some things. There's other things happening in the industry, and we will need to know what the actual variance is between the approved expenditures and the actual net expenditures. Are there any questions from my colleagues?
Deputy Mayor Kaufman?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I don't know if the City Manager can answer this or if Mr. Kelly's in the room, but as noted when we received the presentation last week, just wondering again on any developments going to be progressing or planned to progress in 2020 or 2021, if A, that is all being delayed, and B, report will come back to Council as we are approaching a time when we would be looking at starting those.
Mr. Kelly's in the room, so I'll have him answer your question.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Could I ask those online to put their phones on mute? We're just getting a lot of background feedback. Thank you. Yeah. Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, in your package, with the descriptions that have asterisks next to them, those are items that we have postponed for a year. We were to do them in the various years, but we've already moved them out. And what I'd like to suggest to City Council is, because of our situation now, our situation now, that you request the administration, myself, to come back in October with a revised forecast of what we may be wanting to move forward in 2021. And why I'm suggesting October is that's when we typically get ready for the next construction year. And I think it'd be a lot of value that we have an open discussion about what we're moving ahead with or what we're proposing to delay, because our market conditions are volatile at this time.
Okay, so you would come forward in October with an update?
That's what I propose, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Kelly, did you have a further outline? You good? Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council? I see none. Back to Councillor Crowson.
Thank you. I do have a question of my colleagues. We do not have a date in the resolution. Do we want to amend it to having October as the date for information to come back to us, or are you okay with the vague not having a date at this moment?
Well, it's your resolution. I would favor having a date as suggested by Mr. Kelly. If you want to amend your own resolution.
I would like an amendment to October 2020 for the date that the project variance will be come back to council.
Okay. And further that there be an update to council in?
Yes.
Yeah.
No later than October 31st, 2020.
No later than October 31st, 2020.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the amendment is now in writing on the screen. City Clerk, do we have to vote on the amendment, or is it, it's her motion, right?
Your Worship, it's Councillor Crowson's motion. She can amend it as long as there's no objection from anybody.
Are there any objections to the amendment? I hear none. Okay, we'll now vote on the amended motion if Councillor Crowson has closed.
If there's no debate, I'll call the vote.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Are there any opposed? There are none. Thank you. We'll now move on to 4.2. I have a resolution from Deputy Mayor Kaufman, amendments to City Manager bylaw. Be it resolved that City Council direct City Administration to bring recommended amendments to the City Manager bylaw, including the provisions and delegations of authority from the City Clerk bylaw and the Subdivision and Development Authority bylaw, and repealing those bylaws. Deputy Mayor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. As members of council are aware, we operate under the city manager model, where the city manager is the sole employee of city council. So while we have this de facto link between policy and operations, or between council and administration, there are two major delegations of authority that are not included in the CAO bylaw. And one is currently in the city clerk's bylaw, the other is in subdivision development authority bylaw. As members of council also are aware, we've undertaken a governance review, and part of that review identified that we need to clarify the delegation of authority both within the organization as well as between council and the CAO. So back in January at the meeting of the City Manager Search Committee, the committee reviewed the CAO bylaw to see if we needed to propose any changes to council. At the time, the solicitor identified that there is a minor disconnect in the delegation of authority, and he recommended that we propose to council an amendment of the CAO bylaw. The committee agreed, and that's why we're here in front of you today. So what this does, or what that's being proposed, is to amend the city manager bylaw, which means that this would be the place and the only place that identifies the formal delegations of authority from city council to the city manager. And putting it in the CAO bylaw will strengthen the model of the city manager is the sole employee of city council, still while providing the necessary delegations of authority for effective city operations. So if there are any questions, we'll entertain those now. Otherwise, I'll consider that by opening debate.
Okay, are there any questions from council? I see none. Back to the mover.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. If there's no debate, I will call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Okay, the next item is moved by Councillor Parker.
Your Worship, I'll move it. This is Carlson, if there's no one else available there.
Thank you.
I believe members of the Rotary are here and they're here to attend as well.
Okay, they can come in as long as numbers permit. Okay. Okay, Sunrise Rotary requests. Be it resolved that City Council approve the request from the Sunrise Rotary Club for the donation of the below decommissioned ambulance for their Los Amigos project in Mexico to support community emergency services, school children, and people with disabilities in 4 states in western Mexico, valued at $8,000 and funded from council contingency and allocated to the Fleet Reserve, Fire Reserve portion. Unit 11305, year 2010, make Chevrolet, model 44,500, fuel type diesel, serial number 1GB6G5CL0B1106152. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. This shouldn't be new to any of my colleagues sitting around the table right now. We've had a long-standing partnership with Sunrise Rotary of Lethbridge and supported their partnership with their groups down in Mexico. We do know the great work that the Rotary clubs do around the world. We also know the great work that Rotary clubs do in our community and the support they show the community and our corporation in any time we extend the invitation. I think I'm asking council to approve this donation just to strengthen that partnership.
Thank you. There are representatives from the Sunrise Rotary Club in the audience. If there's any questions, I do have one. If a spokesperson could come forward, my question would be, given the current COVID-19 pandemic situation, when does the Sunrise Rotary Club and how does the Sunrise Rotary Club intend to transport this unit to Mexico, and what's the process by which you will travel?
Well, we are Rotarians, so we follow the rules. At the present time, our plan is to leave on the 18th of October this year, returning on October 31st. All of that will depend entirely on the situation with COVID-19 as it applies in the United States. All of the 6 states that we'll have to cross. And then we get to Mexico. We don't know what rules we're going to face there. And on our way back, we may even have to stay in quarantine in Canada for 14 days. We're prepared to do all of that or move the dates if necessary so that we're in compliance with all of the regulations and rules.
It's important to personally deliver the unit as opposed to ship it?
That's the least expensive way that we've found to do it.
Yep.
We have 2 drivers for each one of the units that we take down, and then we take them and deliver them to the communities. That may change this year, we don't know. But then we have to fly everybody home, and that's the expenses that we incur.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions, Councillor Higgin?
Thank you. Yeah, it's the first one, Mayor Spearman, regarding the COVID. Now, the second one you'd answered regarding why we're not shipping down. Is it my understanding that as well these individuals do some training down there as well? Is that why this group goes down?
That's another part of the program that we have. we have 3 times over the past 10 years, or the past 9 years, this is our 10th year, have worked with fire departments, EMSs, and in Mexico. Some we've brought here for training at Lethbridge College and through the Lethbridge Fire Service people to train these people. And we've sent people down to Mexico and actually trained their people. They had over 50 in one training session for 3 days in Mexico. That's all a part of the Los Amigos project.
And the second question I have that the one I received most after this came forward was, could any other community that you've looked through here in light of the concerns and stuff we have in Canada, is there any community throughout here that could use this according to yourselves, or is it something that is you found to be the best solution to have it sent to Mexico?
Oh, I don't want to get too far into this, but as I'm sure, Councillor, as you're aware, in Alberta, licensing for ambulances is controlled by Alberta Health Services, and they have a contract with the City of Lethbridge to provide ambulance services for that, and Alberta Health Services provides licenses for a set number of ambulances that the city uses in contract with Alberta Health Services. The other community in southern Alberta that does the same thing is Pincher Creek. Everybody else just deals with Alberta Health Services. These licenses that Alberta Health Services has available for are limited totally. Lethbridge, for instance, has, I don't know, I think it's 6 or 8, plus an additional 1 or 2 for mechanical units. After they're no longer licensed by Alberta Health Services, they cannot be used as an ambulance anywhere in Alberta. So the short answer to your question is no, there is no other part of Alberta that could use them.
Thank you. Pass it along.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell?
Thanks again for being here. I just a quick question, if this is approved, what do you do with the unit? Does it get into storage in the city facility, or do you take ownership of it and work it from there?
What happens once we get control of the units, they're registered in the club's name, and then we forward photographs and descriptions of the units that we have to Mexico, and they begin to look for communities that can use these units. Once they have those, then we arrange our trip south. Until we leave, they are stored either indoors if we have indoor space available, which we do at this time for this year, or they're stored outdoors but in a secure location.
Thank you.
Good. I see no further questions. I'll ask Mr. Thornton to take a seat in the audience while we deal with the resolution. Thank you for coming today. Back to Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll call my preamble, my opening, if there's any further debate.
Okay. Any debate from councillors? Councillor Campbell?
I just want to, mention the historical significance of what the Rotary Club does and how often they've been doing it, and the significance that they have, and having seen firsthand through video and pictures and things, the impact that you make on the people of Mexico. I think this is just I know that you've gone through some hardships over the years getting them the vehicles down to Mexico, and this is just another roadblock that I'm sure you're going to deal with, and I think we should just certainly pat you on the back and say let's give them this unit.
Okay, thank you. We'd like to thank the Rotary Club for being available here today to answer questions that councillors had about this. So you've cleared up any questions I had, so I will be supporting the resolution. Any further councillors wish to comment? I see none. Back to Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Just to close, I would like to remind everyone this ambulance has been deemed surplus past its useful life for the organization. I think I'd request that my colleagues respect our long partnership with Rotary Club and their long-term partnership with our folks down in Mexico, and approve this donation. Thank you.
Okay, question has been called. All in favor? Are there any opposed? I hear none. Thank you. Thank you. Move on to 4.4. I have a resolution from Councillor Higgin. 2020 Lethbridge Paradise Canyon Open. Be it resolved that City Council refer this item to a future Community Issues Committee meeting. Councillor Higgin.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. There was, regarding the Open, the Mackenzie Tour Open that was to be held this year, obviously in light of the COVID pandemic that we are in, has been canceled or postponed, and this is what the discussion will be at a future Community Issues Committee meeting. So with that, I will ask if there's any questions or...
Okay, are there any questions from council? I see Deputy Mayor Kaufman has a question.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. To the mover, just curious as to why it's a CIC and not a Finance Committee. It's one and the same in some senses, but just wondering why that's CIC.
I'll pass it on to Ms. Malley or to her designate.
I believe that it was just to have an opportunity to have a conversation with the organizers, and so CIC seemed to be the most appropriate time to do that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions? I see none. Back to Councillor Higgin.
There's no debate. I'll call for the vote.
Any debate? I see none. Question has been called. All in favor? Any opposed? I hear none. We'll now move on to official business. I have a motion from Councillor Carlson. Request for extension for option to purchase. Whereas in the midst of the COVID-19 global pandemic, businesses have experienced a variety of changes to project timelines. Therefore, be it resolved that the extension to the option to purchase of 3401 39th Street North for $3,783,000 to FWS Technologies Limited be approved. And further be it resolved that the terms of the option to purchase to amend the buyer's condition date to October 30th, 2020. And further be it resolved that the terms of the option to purchase amend the closing date to December the 1st, 2020. And further be it resolved that the Mayor and the City Clerk be authorized to sign the agreement. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Just a brief preamble. I think Mr. Kelly, in answering one of the earlier questions from my colleagues, talked about the volatility that we're all experiencing due to COVID right now. And that's what this resolution is a bit about. This isn't business as usual these days. These are challenging times for everyone in our community. And my recommendation with this resolution is that we make this one-time exception to our processes in light of the challenging situation we're all finding ourselves in. And I'd ask for my colleagues' support on that. I'm not sure if there's any questions.
I'm just going to check. Deputy Mayor Kaufman, do you have a question on this issue?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'll just clear the queue. Okay, thank you. Okay, there are no questions.
Then I'll use that as my opening and ask if there's any further debate.
Okay, any debate? I see none.
I will call for the vote.
Question's been called. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, we have one opposed here. Any opposed online? Okay, thank you. That motion carries. Thank you. throat was drying out. I just needed a drink of water. Okay, we're going to move, we have to do the public hearing before we can do 6.1.1. So we're going to move on to 6.1.2, Bylaw 6227. Amendment to Schedule A of Bylaw 6207, 2020 Incentives for Prepayments, Penalty and Tax Deferral Bylaw. Moved by Councillor Carlson. For second reading, be it resolved that Bylaw 6227, Amendment to Schedule A of Bylaw 6207, 2020 Incentives for Prepayments, Penalty and Tax Deferral Bylaw be given second reading. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Worship. My colleagues may have questions around this. Seems everything I'm talking about today starts with volatile times. As we know, taxes are due June 30th. We realize that many members of our community are going to be able to pay their taxes on time. Some may have some challenges, and this is to give a bit of leeway to those who may have some challenges. We are offering, I think it's another 90 days deferral without the penalties being applied. This is for folks who are experiencing challenges. I would request that anyone who can or has the means to pay their taxes by the regular date should do so, because it's either pay now or pay later. We'd appreciate if folks just sort of did business as usual if they can, but if folks are experiencing challenges, we hope this will give them some leniency, some leeway, and some options. So unless my colleagues have any questions around this.
Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing this forward. I just, I guess this would be to Ms. Pinkston. Just, do we have any idea of what the impact would be of the deferral at this time, or is it going to? Do we have to dip into any other funds at this, with going this way?
Mayor Spearman, through to Councillor Campbell. It's difficult to forecast what that might look like. We're hoping that with leaving the deadline as June 30th, that those who can afford to pay will continue to pay, just to help with cash flow. We City Council approved the line of credit it's all blending together a while back, and so we're constantly kind of managing what that might look like and projecting that out. So I can't give you an exact number, but there are some means in place to kind of help manage all of the uncertainty around this.
And that new line of credit that we approved, that would be where we would go to with this if we had to.
That's correct.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Morrow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the City Manager, through to Ms. Pinkston. So, I think we need to be clear with this, and I have some questions. So we are offering that now anybody that cannot pay by June 30th, we will give them 90 days to pay. And then after the 90 days, maybe can you explain just a little bit of how this would work and the penalties that would be charged to this new situation?
Councillor Morrow, so the deadline for the taxes would remain at June 30th, but penalties would not start to be incurred until October 1st. So anyone, the deferral is the opportunity to pay up to the end of September, at which time then the penalties would start to accrue at 3% starting October 1st, 4% starting November 1st, and 5% starting December 1st.
Okay, so I'm able to pay my taxes June 30th, but technically, I don't have to. I could pay it on September 30th, and I'm still not going to be penalized at all. It's just that date of June 30th is now moved to September 30th.
So the idea was that if we leave it at June 30th, people that are on tip and are remaining on tip, it would just continue as normal. So yes, if you paid all of your property taxes at one time, weren't on a different program, then you could technically wait until September 30th to pay your taxes without penalty.
You need notification. So these people that aren't on tip or however else they pay, if they don't pay on June 30th, do you need to be notified and saying, I'm going to take advantage of the extra 90 days that you're giving me? Or is it just, it's there, it's done, I don't have to pay?
You do not need to notify the city if you do not plan to pay until September 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Croson.
Mine is for debate, not question.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. A question to the city manager or designate. Right now, if somebody has a challenge paying their taxes, we obviously encourage them to communicate that with the folks in assessment. Is that same process going to be continue to be advertised that between June 30th and October 1st, or any time after October 1st, if citizens are having or residents are having a challenge paying their taxes, that they are to get in touch with somebody immediately to work something out?
That's correct, Deputy Mayor Kaufman, I'm sorry. My apologies. Yes, that's correct. There are still all of the programs in place. If individuals are struggling to pay their property taxes, they should definitely connect with tax and assessment to look at options and alternatives.
Thank you. And it's been almost 2 months we've seen each other, so that's okay. Second question, in Schedule A of bylaw, or of the bylaw, it actually talks as well about the tax manager may at their sole discretion choose not to apply the tax account a penalty in the amount of $20. Can you just provide clarification as to what exactly that is?
That would just be if there's like a small amount of timing difference or, when the individual came in to pay and when the calculation on the penalty was made. It's just to simplify not having to kind of come to City Council for small kind of anomalies that is just, just a system issue. So in terms of timing, I think it used to be $5. It's just really to adjust for inflation, but that amount could be any amount if council wasn't comfortable with $20.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So my question is, this opportunity for, if you like, delaying of payment, interest-free, is available to both residential and non-residential taxpayers. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor Spearman.
And the City of Lethbridge would prefer if people can or businesses can afford to pay their taxes, that they would continue to pay them by June the 30th, because we are trying to maintain essential municipal services in order to sustain our community through this crisis, correct?
Absolutely, Mayor Spearman.
Thank you. Councillor Morrow.
Thank you. I understand this, and I see why we're doing it, but if anybody's on tip, this does not affect them at all.
That's correct.
So this would affect people like me personally. I know what my taxes are. I set aside the money. It sits in my bank. I cut a post-dated check dated June 30th or June 29th, and you guys take it. How is this really helping anybody? Because you're really not, in my mind, not helping anybody. You're actually encouraging people like me to now keep my money for an extra 90 days. And instead of giving you a post-dated check for the end of June, I'm going to give you a post-dated check for the end of September, which means guys like me are actually withholding money so that the city now has to dip into their line of credit. Why wouldn't you make it the opposite way, where you would give me the incentive and people like me who can still pay and want to pay on June 30th, make it worth my while to pay you on June 30th, because if not, I'm going to keep my money and pay you on the last day, which is the end of September. And the other question I have is, we're not doing anything to these fees. These fees, are the percentage is still the same, 3%, 4%, and 5%. Instead of them being July, August, September, it's now October, November, December. So I'm trying to understand, how does this really help someone? I think what we're hoping is that within those 3 months, people are going to be going back to work. But they're going to have other bills that they have to pay that they've incurred in the meantime since COVID. So explain to me and make me understand how this is going to help the average person that has the money and is willing and can pay, but maybe won't, or anybody else that is going to take advantage of this.
I can speak to the deferral component of this. We were encouraged to do that from the provincial government as we looked at some of the unknowns that were happening as it related to COVID. So this is one of the strategies that we're proposing to council. Again, this is council's decision to alleviate some of the pressures. You are correct, though. This is not. This is just delaying a payment. I believe that there will be people out there that will take advantage of this that may not need to. I think that is part of the challenge of implementing something like this. But it was on the suggestion and strong encouragement from the provincial government that all municipalities look at the deferrals as such. I can't speak to the giving incentives to those that pay on time. That was not something that was, I believe, explored. You can confirm that, Ms. Pinkson, but I don't believe that was explored.
I just say there's not much incentive for people to keep their money. The amounts that banks are paying for interest rate now on savings accounts, next to nothing. So there's, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody ever pays any bill 90 days before you have to. It's gonna, in my mind, this might hurt us more than it will help us, because there's going to be guys like me, unless I'm the only oddball out of 100,000 people, that I'm going to keep my money in my account. I don't care if I'm earning 0.5%. It doesn't matter. It's just, so I'd like to hear what Ms. Pinkson has to say.
Councillor Morrow, there's a couple things. One, we provide some incentive through our TIP program, which helps us manage cash flow because we're receiving regular deposits into the bank account to kind of help manage that. So we offer incentive through that. And we also offer incentive when you prepay up to a certain period of time, which is now passed. But in terms of if somebody wanted to just put a portion of contribution towards their property taxes in advance. So there are a couple of incentive options. This really was based on the recommendation, for council's consideration, based on the recommendation of the province strongly encouraging municipalities to defer, which I agree, it could potentially cause some people to get into some additional cash flow issues because it's not a holiday, it's a deferral, and that could potentially put some pressure on other people. But this was about trying to find somewhere and some way to manage, you know, that we need to continue to provide services to the community, as well as being aware that there are people significantly impacted by COVID, potentially having lost jobs or different things like that, that give them a little bit more time to help manage some of those issues. So there will be people that take advantage of that. We're very hopeful that people will pay when the deadline is. We're hopeful that the mortgage companies will pay on that deadline because that's the deadline, to help with alleviate some of the pressures that this will definitely present to the organization in terms of a cash flow perspective.
Are there any further questions from council? Okay, I hear none. We'll move on to debate. Councillor Carlson, would you like to lead debate?
I did have a question.
You have a question? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Hagan.
Thank you. Question for the city manager designate. Come that time, if for some reason we're still in the similar concern and it comes to September, for example, or sometime in between that, we have the option again to look at this, I would imagine, and a possible further extension if for some reason this is not going to work. Are we pretty set in that resolution right now? Again, knowing council can bring anything back, I guess, right?
Councillor Hagan, I guess City Council could always bring back a motion to amend a bylaw. I would think once once should this bylaw be approved, that helps to kind of establish some of our planning in terms of cash flow. So if we were to defer that further, that, while it's possible, would significantly kind of put some pressure on the organization in terms of cash flow, but that's always council's
Nope,
option.
understandable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, now we'll move on to debate. Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I do appreciate the questions and the answers. It covered most of my debate. Just for clarity, this is a deferral of taxes out 92 days. We know it's not a tax holiday for folks, but it is to try and give some folks who are experiencing immediate concerns, especially around cash flow, some options until things start to return to some semblance of normal. I do want to thank the administration for working on this and council to be exploring ways that we can assist our community. It's challenging times, and this is one thing that City Council does have in its toolkit to help folks in our community who are experiencing challenges. I do know that most of my family and neighbors here are good, kind, civic-minded folks. When they get their tax bill, I think they will be paying it. Most of us, I think, can probably have budgeted for that and can make that payment on time. This is really for those folks who are experiencing immediate challenges right now, and it is one small tool we can use. So I'd ask for my colleagues' support.
Thank you. Councillor Crowson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I, too, have been listening carefully to the questions that people have, because one of the things we at Council have to do is try to balance the fiscal responsibility that we have to the city as a corporation, making sure that there is enough money to run the city, that we can provide the essentials that are required for the community. But we have to balance that with the fiscal responsibility to our residents and to our businesses. And we heard from the Economic Recovery Task Force when they presented, what might and might not help people. It was across the board. And in some ways, we need a menu of items. Some will help some people, some might help others, etc., that we can do to provide some support. This is a deferral. This is not, never pay your taxes. But this does give people a bit of a breathing room, hoping that some of the recovery, some of the programs that are coming in from the federal government can help alleviate some of those immediate bills, and then people can take care of this. For those who can pay, as everyone else has said, please pay. One of the things people have to realize, if you need an incentive to pay, we do have some incentives, but the other incentive is that if the city gets into financial difficulties, it will eventually be paid by our taxpayers. So if you have the money, pay, because the city will then be in a better state instead of having to have taxes further up next year or whatever the response might be. So I will support this because it is part of that menu of items that we can provide for our businesses and for our residents, and hoping that this will help as many people as possible, but knowing that we need a menu of items. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grossen. Deputy Mayor Kaufman?
No, mine were in questions, and I think it was taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? I will be supporting the resolution. We understand that COVID-19 has had a big impact on our community, both residential taxpayers and our non-residential taxpayers. Property tax bills are going to be coming at a time when some businesses may just be beginning to open and residents may be just returning to work. By extending the penalty dates, we believe this will give businesses and individuals more time to get back on their feet and make payments towards their bill without being penalized. At the same time, it's important that the city maintains essential municipal services to keep the community moving forward through the recovery. So municipal property taxes contribute to funding essential services, including our police, fire, EMS, utilities, infrastructure, and human services. So important that we continue to provide those services to our community. So I will be supporting the resolution. Councillor Carlson, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I appreciate all the comments from my colleagues, and I will just call for the vote.
Question has been called. All in favor? Are there any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you. We'll now move on to inquiries. Are there any inquiries from council? Oh, want to do third reading? Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, third reading. Sorry. Bylaw 6227. Be it resolved that Bylaw 6227, amendment to Schedule A of Bylaw 6207, 2020 incentives for prepayments, penalty, and tax deferral bylaw be given third reading, and the mayor and the city clerk be authorized to sign and seal the same. Councillor Carlson?
I call for the vote.
Question's been called. All in favor? Opposed? There are none. Thank you. Now we'll move on to inquiries. Are there any inquiries from council? Councillor Morrow.
Thank you. This is to the city manager. Ms. Melly, I'm sorry I tried bothering you yesterday, but for some reason, I couldn't get videos to you. So I tried about 3 or 4 times. I left you a voice message. I hope you might have got it, to tell you that I would be bringing this up today. So if you want, I will share the video with you. I tried emailing it, and I for some reason, I even tried again now. But anyways, so yesterday I went to the recycle center on the west side one. And there were many good people recycling, and the recycle center was beautiful, clean, looking really good. But just off to the side, there was 3 blue bins. And I further went down and I went to the north side site as well. I didn't go to the south side one, but I did the 2. And there's 3 blue bins that have been placed there. And if I remember correctly, they were placed there to help our citizens who had excess garbage or whatever because of the landfill to use those bins. What I saw there and what the people that were there saw was absolutely shocking. There's mattresses, there's microwaves, there's everything that you can imagine, furniture, like everything. And included in that same pile is yard waste. So I have been talking to several people, and some say that they actually went to the landfill twice last week and were able to use and go down and use the landfill. And there were others that tell me that they've gone to the landfill and they were turned away. So, and we even heard, well, I think the landfill is now opening today, but up until today, so it seems to me that there's people that are allowed to go into the landfill and others that weren't. I'm getting mixed stories. So this may not mean anything anymore because the landfill is now opening, but I guess here's an opportunity, and I'm asking if you can please tell the community exactly what it is, because that mess at the recycle center, I don't know how, and well, the city employees, I'm sure, are gonna have to clean it up, but it is a mess, and I will share the video with you.
Okay.
So, can you maybe, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I did not get the video, and I didn't get your voicemail either, so that's
I left the voicemail at your work number.
Oh.
I tried sending the video to both your personal cell, which I don't think I have the right one, and,
So
and
got the
also
picture.
here. But I even tried
Okay.
now
Oh,
emailing
that's
it to you,
interesting.
and it didn't go through.
Yeah, that's
It stays in
interesting.
my
It might be
outbox. But
too
anyways,
big or something, but
yeah.
I see Councillor Campbell has it. I'll ask Mr. Hawkins if he can provide some clarification on when the landfill was closed to everything with the exception of essential services, but he can probably comment
And
too.
maybe I'd like to know about these blue bins, because people are, they were upset with the city, saying, what's the city doing? Why aren't they cleaning this up? And
Okay, I'll ask Mr. Hawkins to respond. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll speak to, so the chronology here was with the public health orders that were issued mid-March, we took measures to limit access to the waste and recycling center, the landfill site specifically, because we were concerned about community spread, we were concerned about staff safety. So we essentially ratcheted down access to only essential loads, which was, for the most part, just commercial customers. Non-residential customers with just a pickup truck of stuff were being turned away, and pretty much systemically. Like, there may have been the odd person that got through that didn't get turned away but for the most part, up until today, residential use of the landfill was being restricted. The unintended consequence of that, the other thing that happened at the same time was we announced in March that we would delay the opening from April 1st of the April 1st opening of the yard waste sites to May, and again, May 4th, the yard waste sites are now open at the 3 locations, plus the waste and recycling center as well at the landfill. So the unintended consequence of those decisions in March is illegal dumping. And so as long as, and what people were doing, initially it was just yard waste that was being dumped at the gate at the 3 depots in town. But then because it was accumulating, it became an opportunity for those less well-behaved folks to actually just discard anything. And it wasn't just our sites, it was the Catholic Charities, the Diabetes Association, those other drop-off locations, private drop-off locations that suddenly became dumping grounds for the last month to 6 weeks. So what we've done in the very short term, those blue bins are been placed there as an effort. They were placed there a week ago, or about a week and a half ago, recognizing the illegal dumping, to try to make it easier for us to haul away the illegal dumping. In the absence of having any dedicated resource to try to police that location, we just dropped those there. And they will be used by city staff and a contractor as well to clean up those locations at the 3 yard waste sites. This problem should go away now, because not only are the yard waste sites open, but the waste and recycling center, the landfill, is open as well, and the public drop-off is open, and is now open Monday to Friday, normal working hours, and for residential access. So we've got yard waste sites up and operating as of today, as of this morning at 9 o'clock, as well as the ability for folks to access the landfill for waste, for actual garbage. And in the meantime, we've got to clean up the mess that's been created at the 3 yard waste sites, and those bins are there just to facilitate that. This week, all of that waste that's accumulated on the west side, there's a similar dump at the north side site as well as the south side site. They'll all get cleaned up and hauled away, and then we'll remove those bins, because we don't want to encourage illegal dumping in town. If you have a legitimate load of garbage, not yard waste, but garbage, you're now encouraged to take that to the public drop-off at the Waste and Recycling Center in the county.
You're talking household garbage? Because that's what was there. Like paper plates, seems like somebody had a party. Okay, so I'm going to believe what you're going to say. I trust what you said, but here's the issue that I have. And maybe it's something that you might want to check in, because it's not our staff that operates the landfill. It's a third party that we contract out, correct?
We have a contractor that mans the scale.
Okay.
So that's contract staff, and then the equipment operator is a contract staff as well.
Because there have been people that have gone and have been allowed to go to the landfill last week with truckloads of, bushes and yard cleaning waste, which you've identified was allowed.
Yep.
But there were also regular pickup trucks with mattresses and stuff like that that were also allowed. So does that mean that the people that are at the gates of the site, at the landfill, are picking and choosing who they allow in and who they don't?
Well, they shouldn't be.
Because that seems to me that's what they're doing.
So the city manages the site. It's a city-owned and operated facility. We have contract staff, but they take direction from my staff, from Joel Sanchez's staff. So they have a script, and they have a process they go to verify the location and what is deemed essential, what isn't, and they should be consistently applying that rule. Having said that, I can't, without specifics, it would be hard to refute the fact that there probably were the odd exception made in the last 6 weeks.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I have 2 inquiries. However, one I'm going to send to the city manager for response, because it may require an answer from legal on a statement regarding redevelopment plans or area structure plans and their relationship to the land use bylaw. The second one sort of follows up, however, on what Councillor Morrow was just asking about. I have received a couple of emails from folks this morning who are very appreciative that we have our yard waste site open. Many of us have been storing our grass clippings and leaves and things of that nature. 2 points were raised, though, consistently through all the communication. First of all, people are witnessing our staff not social distancing, and I recognize that in some of these situations it's extremely difficult. However, reports of up to 6 people sort of congregating was identified. To the city manager or designate, are we trying to reassure that policy to our staff? Were these all one-offs, or have we done some testing?
I'll ask Mr. Hawkins to respond to that, please.
So it is a work in progress, Councillor Kaufman. We're essentially creating a self-serve situation at the yard waste sites. And social distancing is supposed to be practiced by the staff. This is brand new folks. They are casual staff. They got training middle of last week. So I'm not surprised that there is some non-compliance with respect to the interactions, but we're going to address that as quickly as we can. The other thing we're waiting on, and which we now received as of today, is some additional PPE, so masks for the staff, as well as I think they have the gloves and they have the actual proper coveralls and stuff, but it was masks that we're going to provide them as well. But they'll be distributed this week as well. So there is some ongoing on-the-job training that's still occurring, but we will address that this week.
Excellent, thank you. The second thing that came out of that as well, a couple of folks have noted that seniors were asked to, and the word struggle was used in one of them, to unload their vehicles. Are you looking at the potential of doing a reverse grocery pickup where you pull your car up and groceries are loaded into your trunk at a safe distance? Is there the possibility of staff safely unloading vehicles while people wait in them if they require assistance?
Yeah, that isn't how it's set up right this moment, but we'll look at that suggestion as we sort out the actual operation this week.
Okay, so as you say, right at the moment, it's a self-serve. I will pull in with my vehicle and throw things into the bin or the pile as required, and staff will just make sure that things are being done appropriately.
That's correct.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Higgin.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Just thank you. Sidebar there with the city manager regarding who is cleaning this up, because I know that Chief Rathwell was by and he said that, I thought he said their team being the firemen, we're going and cleaning this up, and to my understanding, Ms. Melly, that's not the case. It is city staff that will go in.
Yeah, I mean, the fire department is city staff as well, but it is the teams that work in the infrastructure services that work with Doug Hawkins. So they were the individuals that went in and cleaned up, yes.
Excellent. Another question I have is Saturday free drop, is that open as of yet?
Not yet.
Not yet, so it's just you're going to pay if you want to take this out there?
That's correct.
Also, and do we have an estimated time or why that is not an answer to why we can't do, if we can do it the rest of the week, why we couldn't do it on Saturday?
So it is about public health, and Free Saturday elicits a tremendous amount of activity. And so we're trying to discourage that mass activity, trying to spread it out. So rather than creating an inducement which creates a potential public health hazard, we continue to restrict access on the Free Saturday. So that's why we're doing it right now. And again, that's under advisement from ECC and given the kind of the health orders and those restrictions that are still in place.
Because and the reason I ask that is I know anytime I've gone out for that particular service, there's no one anywhere around me, so I just thought the free service, of course, and these are comments that are coming in, gosh, okay, so you let us out to pay, but you won't let us out to get it for free.
That's correct.
The drop, but that's correct. Okay, correct. I guess I'll just leave it at that. Large item removal is still okay, because I've heard both sides, as Councillor Morrow said, with the actual dump thing. Are we allowed to, is citizens allowed to call for the large item removal?
Yep, that program is still in place. There are 2 limitations, though. We aren't taking metal product. So fridges and Freon, we aren't taking that just because of the surface contact associated with that, and the life of the virus on metal product or or metal items, but the rest of the program is up and running. You
No
can make-
metal.
No metal.
No
Just-
metal.
Just,
I'm just wondering
just
what
wood and
item is not
couches.
metal. Oh, so
So it's just the fridges and stoves and stuff that people try to dispose of into that program. But things like furniture and wood and all that kind of stuff, that's still part of the program.
All right.
We'll take appointments.
Thank you.
Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. And just to continue on with Mr. Hawkins, just the recycling depot is for the yard waste. Do your leaves and branches, do they have to be in paper bags, or can you just deliver them in paper or in plastic bags?
Paper bag, loose or in paper bags, no plastic.
No plastic bags.
No plastic.
Is that going to be for the rest of the year, or?
That's the way the program works right now. Unless, if you bring something in a plastic bag, you have to debag it yourself
Okay.
and take the plastic away. You can't discard of a load of leaves or grass or wood or whatever
Okay.
in a plastic bag and just leave the plastic there.
Okay, thank you.
Good. I have a couple of questions. Residents are asking why Lethbridge doesn't have the community gardens open yet. The Alberta Medical Officer of Health a week ago Thursday said Albertans could enjoy their community gardens, but municipalities would have to provide regulations. Why are we unable to open our our community gardens in Lethbridge while they're open in Calgary, Edmonton, and Red Deer and other cities?
As I understand it, and I will confirm this with our Director of Emergency Management, the difference is that some of those community groups have been very proactive about setting up their processes so that they can meet the requirements of the Alberta Health Services and their recommendations. We are continuing to look at that as the Director of Emergency Management, as some of those community gardens are on city property, but we will continue to look at that and also in the context of the staging of reopening.
Okay. So if community groups come forward with a plan that is compatible with the requirements of Alberta Health Services and our emergency management team, our community gardens can open. Is that correct?
I believe our emergency management folks would look at that, but they would also have to work with Alberta Health Services. They would also help determine whether or not they're meeting their requirements. But they should come forward with a plan in terms of how they intend to meet the requirements of social distancing as well as touch points.
Okay, thank you. And councillors have been receiving concerns about from residents in the area of the self-isolation unit hotel. What do we know about the self-isolation unit hotel? Because it seems unusual that two individuals who are supposed to be self-isolating are causing a lot of concern in the area of that hotel.
Thanks for the question. So the ECC, our Emergency Coordination Center, as you know, the Super Lodge was identified as an opportunity to use for self-isolation for those people that don't have access to a home. So two individuals are actually being housed there. But we've learned today that Super Lodge is also being used for other social agencies that are non-COVID related. There are 29 additional people who are staying at that Super Lodge for a variety of reasons through other agencies.
Thank you very much. Any other inquiries from council? Yep, Councillor Higgin.
Thank you. Question for Ms. Malley, one that I just received, sorry, and you can get back to me if you don't have the answer. Regarding baseball and other sports during the summertime, and the question was of liability. If a child that is able to go out and play on this gets sick, and this is one I'm sure you'll have to bring back, or God forbid passes from getting out there and doing this sport, the consent forms that are being held by the organization, would this COVID supersede that? And again, you'll have to get back to me on that for sure. And that's fine. And as far as the rollout for that, we are just going to follow what's happening with the provincial government as far as sports and recreational activities.
Yeah. So the staged opening is they've got some information that's on the website. So stage one does not include sporting groups that are engaged in sports. So, I mean, it's open spaces are available, but they, it says outdoor recreation, but then they also you have to be able to stay 6 feet apart or 2 meters apart and not more than 15 people. So I don't know there would be some sports, I think, that could accommodate that. As for the liability, I'd have to look into that and consult with our city solicitor on that.
Totally understand. The other thing is our facilities, as far as the restrooms in these areas, will not be open until the time that this is provincially lifted, as far as...
I'll have to look into that. I'm not sure if that's specifically, I don't see it on my list, but we'll certainly can get back to you on that with respect to washrooms. Again, it's an issue of the capacity for us to clean them, to ensure that they're safe to use. So we will be looking into that.
Great, and I'll forward this on to you. My apologies, is it just, I just come in, so thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other inquiries? Councillor Morrow?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just one more, and thank you, Councillor Hagan. It triggered my mind. I should have asked this a couple meetings ago. People have been wondering about the tennis. There's no nets put up. They're padlocked, at least the ones that I've gone to look at. But people are saying, you know, you can hit a ball off of that wood that's put there, but why can't you just open up the courts, no nets, so people can just keep hitting a ball back and forth? You know, they are way more than 6 meters or 2 meters apart, so they don't understand. People are asking me why we wouldn't allow that, especially now that they've allowed golfing. There's more closer contact with golf, at least the tennis people are telling me, than there is with tennis, because you're at extreme opposite ends smacking a ball. So any news on that, or what can I tell people?
So I don't have news on that today, but I can tell you that will be part of our consideration as we look at this, as we implement stage 1, which is, you know, could be as soon as May 14th. You're welcome.
Thank you. Any further questions? I see none. We'll move on now to council updates. Are there any updates from councillors from committees they serve on? I have some from the Police Commission. Councillor Morrow had inquired about why we're continuing with photo radar during the COVID-19 epidemic. And the police chief said that actually there's more violations now than ever. This year, for example, they've charged 5 people with stunting. Then that is a speeding violation where people are 50 kilometers or more over the speed limit. And last year, there were 0 charges for stunting. But the sense is that because the roads are less congested, people are tending to drive faster. There's concern about community safety because there's so many people that are looking for recreational exercise. And so there is no plan to reduce photo radar during COVID. If anything, it's needed more now than ever.
Can I just, and just to be clear, the people that have complained to me, and I tend to agree with, that's why they're not complaining that photo radar is there, because I think they understand exactly what the chief just said. The problem is that they would like to see a police officer there, especially if they know there's more of this behavior going on, because then not only do they get a fine, but they get demerits. And that seems to be the thing that, well, it would affect or possibly, you know, convince somebody to slow down. Because if somebody's got money, they're going to pay their fine. And so that's why that's the comments that I'm getting. They're not opposed to it. They're just saying, like, really? Why don't they put more police in places, especially where they are doing the stunting and the excess speeding, and Métis Trail is one of them. And I have noticed, because I'm doing a lot of walking, that there are now more police cars actually there with their radar gun, which people are applauding me for that. So go figure that out. I don't know, but I'm just passing it on, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I've shared the sheet with the councillors prior to the meeting. You will see more conventional speeding than last year. Last year seemed to be an aberration in 2019. Tickets handed out in 2017 by conventional means, that's officers in cars. 3,975. It dropped to 3,370 in 2018. In 2019, it dropped another 800. So from almost 4,000 in 2017 down to 2,525 in 2019. And in 2020, the numbers are up to 3,293. So it's up substantially over last year for conventional ticketing. And so there has been a significant improvement. Part of the reasons given for that by the chief were that there are new officers doing the traffic beat, and that they're more committed to doing the job, a little more enthusiasm. So maybe some change was needed. The challenge they have in a couple of areas, one, their absenteeism. They're now just getting back to capacity. COVID-19 has created some additional challenges where officers who are confronted by people who cough on them or, then are having to self-isolate, so it's creating some staffing challenges. So that's why there's continued reliance on photo radar as well, that's a challenge, and they've also redirected existing resources into groups like the Crime Suppression Unit, and they're experiencing great success with the 6 officers they've got assigned who are making more frequent drug busts and being more effective in the city in that area. So reallocating existing resources has taken some people away from traffic, so they had been relying more on photo radar, but there's also an increase in conventional radar tickets fines as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for doing that. That's a great report, and I will definitely pass it on.
Yep. Good. Councillor Hagan?
Yes, and thank you, Mayor Spearman. I wanted to pass along as well. I did ask the question about the sworn officer as well, and that was given that they are trained in Edmonton, I believe, to do this exact duty, and furthermore to what Mayor Spearman has said. Mayor Spearman, I wanted to share something, but I know we all sit down here as far as in camera, and then we have our meeting after.
Yeah.
And I received multiple questions regarding cameras throughout our community, and not going into any details. I believe that was just it was public. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know how to get into this. So they're noticing a lot on different, and Ms. Malley may be able to help this with this answer, or I don't know if you had heard anything more that I didn't at Police Commission, but these cameras that are going up throughout the community is in partnership with TELUS, correct me if I'm wrong?
I can't recall the specific detail, but we can expect
what they're used for.
We can expect more generally, it's not to catch people, it's to provide evidence after people are caught. So if you happen to park your car in the back parking lot here and somebody smashes it, in case, so I don't go back to the police or the insurance people and they can say, well, you probably did that yourself. You already had a damaged windshield. You probably smashed that yourself. Well, in this case, you'd be able to provide evidence if we had a camera back there that somebody else might have thrown an object at your car.
And I thank you for that, because the question came up, and it could have been inquiries, but of course we got into the Police Commission as far as reporting. And maybe Mr. Hawkins, do you have anything more? Because I know that there was discussion before about the city doing something similar. Do you have anything more to add about these cameras that are throughout the community? A lot of them are on street lights and not just speed cameras, and that's the one that I'm getting is from Mayor McGrath Drive. There's cameras you see on so many different traffic lights now that weren't there before. Could you maybe explain what that would be?
So you know, those cameras for the most part are simply controllers. They don't actually take video.
Oh, okay.
So the technology today in terms of controlling the cycle times for green, yellow, and red is through, it used to be with wires in the pavement. It's now done with actual motion detectors, cameras mounted on the actual signal themselves. But those are not surveillance cameras.
Those are when we see the staff up doing those. That is what that is.
That's what
on Mayor McGrath.
Those cameras strictly control the actual timing of the lights of the signal itself.
Appreciate the response. Thank you.
You. Any more council updates? I see none. So we have a public hearing at 4 o'clock. I think we're going to recess and go in camera after a break. So do I need a motion to go in camera? Okay, can I have a motion to go in camera?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Who was that? Deputy Mayor Kaufman?
Deputy Mayor Kaufman.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we're going to go in camera, but we will resume at 3:10. We'll take a 5-6 minute break.